We are now ready to start the post-lunch session. I'll request you all to please kindly take your seats. As you all might be aware, this is the first track, Making Farmer Producer Organizations Sustainable. We are now ready to start with our first session of track 1, Farming Futures, Reimagining Farmer Producer Organizations. I take the opportunity of warmly welcoming the esteemed moderators. May I invite them to please take their place on the stage. May I first invite Dr. Ajit Kanitkar, policy researcher and visiting faculty, IIM Udaipur. May I request him to please take his place on the stage. I also invite Professor C. Shambhu Prasad, Professor Irma, to please join us on stage. I would now like to invite on stage the esteemed panelists for this session. May I request Dr. Tara Nair, Director Research, Work, Fair and Free. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. I warmly welcome Mr. Yogesh Dwivedi, CEO, Madhya Bharat Consortium of Farmers Producer Company Limited. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Parthasarthi T, CEO, Skill Green Global. We also welcome warmly in our midst B. Sivarani, CEO, Veerapandi Kalanjia Jeevidam Farmer Producer Company. A very warm and hearty welcome to the esteemed moderator and the panelists of this session. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, in this afternoon session, we have in our midst a very special guest. We warmly welcome in our midst Mr. Arun Maira, Member Planning Commission. May I request you, sir, to please join us on stage for the release of the book, Farming Futures, Reimagining Farmer Producer Organizations. Sir, you will be a part of the discussion. And meanwhile, I'm just inviting you on stage to please kindly release this book.
Can I request Abhishek, please join us. Abhishek, Pallavi and Pradeep sir, you can also join us in the release. They are authors of the book as well. One of you can come this side.
Thank you, Mr. Maira, for doing us the honors. Ladies and gentlemen, this book is entitled Farming Futures, Reimagining Farmer Producer Organizations. So once again, a warm welcome to all of you. I now hand it over to the moderators to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Access, for this opportunity to have a release of this book. I'd like to start by requesting Sri Arun Maira to come and share a few words about the book, and then we will start the panel discussion. Please, sir.
Thank you very much, Shambhu. Good afternoon, friends. I was asked by my friend, Professor Shambhu Prasad, just 2 days ago. He said, this book is going to be released here today, and would I please come and enjoy the release of the book? And then he added, I'd like you to speak for 3 minutes. So I was reminded of Winston Churchill, who told someone, who invited him, Winston Churchill, to speak, that if you want me to speak for 5 minutes, you should have asked me 1 month ago, so I can prepare. If you want me to speak for an hour, I'll do so now. Now I've had 2 days, but I have prepared to speak for less than 5 minutes. Thank you. And so I made some notes, if you don't mind, to make sure I conclude in time and stay on track. I want to talk about the significance and the value of the knowledge that is being released today, which I've had the opportunity in the last 2 days to dip into and to read. This report lays out firstly the context, which is that it's in the report, no national occupational group in the world contains more people than India's agriculture sector. Also, smallholder farmers account for between 30% and 70% of global food production, and a majority of the smallholder farmers in the world are in India. Another point made there, Indian agriculture does not have a production deficit. Actually, Indian agriculture has a very serious incomes deficit, that small farmers don't earn enough. So the sweep of this book and the subject in it is about, I'm going to now put it to how we think. It's about the colonization of the lands of the global south, where we have this problem about farmers and small farmers still in agriculture, wishing to increase their incomes and improve their livelihoods. That history of colonization is over, the colonization of the lands. But the colonization of the minds of the policymakers of the global south is not over. There's a Western sway over technology. Western management institutions rule the management methods that we teach in our institutions, and Western academia rules over economics and even the social sciences. The prevalent paradigm of progress is founded on solutions based on chemical technologies delivered by corporations to produce results on scale, along with more profits for the owners of the corporations and the patent holders of technologies, and this is not a sustainable solution any longer. The prevalent paradigm in economics is of stages of economic development, which requires farmers to be moved out of agriculture and off the land into factories and into cities, and where there are no jobs or less jobs today and no social security. And so during the migration, reverse migration in COVID, they returned to the land, millions of them. Why? The global population today is 8 billion. 6.4 billion of the 8 live in the global south. 1.4 billion each in Canada and in India. And China's per capita income today is 5 times higher than India. So who has the problem and who has the need to find a solution? It is India. The vital role of India's small farmers for finding new solutions for themselves and for the world, I'm going to add, is being displayed in this book. They are struggling, the world is struggling with accelerating climate change and with increasing wealth inequalities. And therefore, the significance of this report is we are looking at and looking for solutions to the right problem in the right way. What we need is full systems solutions, which are not just economic solutions, but solutions which are environmentally and socially sustainable too. So the value of this report is, it says in the report, that studies, as is increasingly common in academia, depend solely on online database searches and tend to ignore significant insights from critical reflections and knowledge grounded in practice or practitioner experience. The present paradigm of globalization, which is promoted by Western institutions, is one economy on one planet and one future. We need a new paradigm of progress, which India, since last year, has been extolling, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It's one family on one earth with one future. A family, not an economy. This study, I say, seems to me, and I'm sure as you read it, you will agree, is a well-grounded approach to learning in which farmers are not numbers, but they are agents of improvement in their own lives. Their descriptions of the opportunities, as well as their insights into the resistance from entrenched ideas in institutions on the top, is a very good contribution that you're making to the whole world. Thank you so much. Thank you. And if I exceeded 5 minutes, it's because it didn't give me enough notice. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arun Mehra ji, for, as usual, your words of wisdom and contextualizing the book itself. So what I'd like to do is a very brief presentation on what the book is all about. So the book is available. We've just had the South Asian edition. So this is the first launch that we've had of the South Asian edition. So a few copies are available in the stall of the Taylor and Francis. We would like to use this book to have conversations around the FPO ecosystem. And what I'd like to do is just to briefly point to you what the book is all about. There are 15 chapters, 15 FPOs that have been studied. There's an introductory chapter and a concluding chapter. The introductory chapter and the first case study on the Krishidan FPO is available for open access online. So as you can see, the FPO studied, there are 12 FPOs and 3 FPO federations are across the country. We had a few more, which we couldn't cover in this. They cover significant diversity in terms of crops, regions, and so on. We also have an ongoing series of blogs on FPOs. We have about 44 of them, and we invite you to contribute to the series as well. So all the case authors were roughly trying to address some of the questions. What went on in terms of incubating these FPOs? What's the entrepreneurial quality of these organizations? So looking at them as business enterprises. What's the requirement for capacity building and what support have they got from the ecosystem? Just to remind ourselves, all these 15 FPOs were started before the 10,000 FPO policy scheme because we wanted FPOs which have been in operation for over 3 years when the business model slowly emerges, issues on governance and management, and how have they actually performed. So we've had 4 elements of it. First chapter or first section of cases, 4 of them are on enabling market access through collectives, including one on the Jivika FPO promoted by an SHG Federation of the larger, Bihar Rural Livelihoods Program. And the key element of building inclusive institutions of women and even tribal farmers. So 6 of the 12 FPOs that have been studied are women-led FPOs. So there are lots of insights on the gender element of it. And this issue of how are these FPOs moving towards innovation and autonomy. So we have 2 of those cases today being talked about. Tara will talk to you a little bit about Desi Seeds and Pathasati about the Kalani case study, about issues of sustainability as well. And then what does it take to sustain FPO federations? And we have Yogesh Dwivedi talking to us about the Madhya Bharat Consortium, and Ajit Kanitkar, my co-editor, will speak about the chapter on the Maha Farmer Producer Company. So just a quick snapshot of the kinds of institutions and to see how well they have done with regard to the business. What's the nature of the share capital? How are they different from a typical investor-owned firm? And so on. Are they having profits or losses over a period of time? And so we do have one FPO which has been consistently negative for various reasons, but most have had, as we can see, some fluctuating fortunes. But we also believe that they are, bankable. So what you see, unlike a typical milk producer, milk cooperative that we are used to from Anand, where the fortunes are always on the rise. What you see in these FPOs, and this is one of the few studies that have looked at it over a period of time, you can see that some years are good, some years are bad, and this continues over some time. So the way we look at these institutions are important. Some benefited in some sense during COVID and some didn't. And you can see kinks in the growth as well. And part of that could be the inconsistent policy on MSP procurement by the government for FPOs. So they are profitable, but they don't make that huge kind of profit. Only 3 of the 12 FPOs have had no loss in any of the 8 years. So we need to look at them as startups, but we are not investing sufficiently in them. And the sense we have is they are bankable if you look at it from a slightly broader kind of perspective. So I'd like to end with this brief introduction to leave a few questions which our panelists will take forward. A little bit on the kinds of innovations that the case authors have seen in their particular kind of FPOs. How have they contributed to making a difference in incomes and livelihoods of smallholder farmers? A certain element of, despite the plethora of schemes, what are the ground level challenges faced by these 21st century farmer organizations? So they're different from some of the earlier cooperatives that we've seen. And how can we move towards, as we suggest, and that's also there in the soil report this year, how do we focus more on sustainability of these institutions rather than just adding numbers? So the estimates are about there are 28,000 to 29,000 farmer producer companies in India today. But it's anybody's guess how many of them are sustainable. So these are the 3 broad questions we would like our panelists to focus on. And I'll now leave it to Dr. Ajit to start the conversations.
Yeah. Thank you, Shambhu. Good afternoon, everyone. My colleague, panel members, thank you, Arunji, for setting the context. I would like to begin with Professor Tara Nair. She has authored a particular case study in this volume that was released today. She's an economist by training and continues to work on issues of entrepreneurship, farmers' institutions, and for a couple of years on migration and issues related to migration. So I would start with a question to her. Tara, would you share a bit about the case that you authored, which is actually a case study on an FPC in Karnataka, working with farmers on indigenous seeds. The name of the case study is Desi Seeds. And we would like to know more from her, especially in the context of the discussion that's happening all over the country in last couple of years, in terms of farmers moving from very high input chemical fertilizer regime to a kind of natural, organic, desi seeds, local seeds, and so on and so forth. So what has been the experience of this FPC, and what were the innovations that they did? And probably later on, what were the challenges that they faced in this transition? And probably I would follow up with the question right away, is that could this be a kind of a direction for many other farmer institutions in general for this transition to happen?
Thank you, Ajit, and thank you, Shambhu. I think let me start by saying that this was being part of this, initiative was extremely refreshing and very, very enriching. So in fact, something which started off as maybe a very brief sort of a collaboration association, I think almost traveled a couple of years now. So we have been constantly thinking and talking about, FPOs. Coming to the case study that I have worked on, as Ajit said, this was a very special sort of an FPO in Karnataka based out of Mysore that really aggregates indigenous varieties of seeds for organic to help organic cultivators to access easily and conveniently their inputs. My co-author Harish and I, we reached this case study while we were searching for a kind of a producer organization which traveled a very organic, path towards organization, rather than, because, as we know, there is a lot of orchestration around FPOs, FPCs in India. A lot of programs and schemes, like initiated by several, apex institutions, governments, and, state and central governments have sort of, triggered formation of several FPOs. We were looking for models which organically grew into an FPO. And that's how we came to know an organization called Sahaja Samriddha in Karnataka, which is working in the organic space, but they are working on organic crops and pulses and things like that. While studying Sahaja Samriddha, we realized that they very recently started a seed company as a separate establishment. So we started seeing a very interesting sort of a journey of a movement in the state of Karnataka, which started somewhere around late 90s, early 2000s, in promoting organic agriculture as a response to an increased sort of agrarian distress. It was a kind of a political response to the criticism that, high input, chemical agriculture has really, it was driving farmers to suicide. Sort of into real harm. So as a kind of a response to that, the government of Karnataka started thinking about a policy on organic, etc. So Sahaja Samriddha was a movement of organic cultivators, and they were really talking about awareness and mobilization of farmers around the culture of, sustainable agriculture, indigenous seed sovereignty, and things like that. And they took this as an opportunity to form first a kind of an NGO, and then a farmer producer company. First a crop centric producer company, and then a seed centric producer company. So we started seeing a kind of an interesting pattern where, at least in some part of the journey of FPOs, there could be an organic sort of a kind of a path towards formation. So that was what really interested us. Coming to Deshi Seeds, it was set up somewhere in 2013. The purpose was very simple, that, that really wanted to promote the cause of organic or sustainable agriculture, and also and I don't know, maybe a couple of sentences around seed industry itself maybe would be in order here, because seed industry in India is a fairly sort of, it's an industry which is really kind of bifurcated into two parts. One is the kind of, commercial hybrid seed producers, which is a very commercialized market-centric system. The other one is what the farmers do. They farm save their seeds and then they exchange with each other. So there is no intermediation of any great market sort of a thing there. So that's why public sector enterprises are mostly active in the farm saved seeds segment, and the hybrid and commercial seed segment. And we know the giants in the Mahicos and, like the big speed companies in the world that are operating in that space. So that's not the space that maybe Deshi Seed wanted to kind of compete with. They were actually looking at farm saved seed and trying to kind of enter into the commercial space and making into a product, a commodity which can be sold. But it's a very small company, about 500 people, because we know that seed production is not a very, you will not find farmers in a contiguous geographic sort of a region. The farmers are fragmented across. So aggregating those farmers is not very easy in that sense. It's not as usual. It's not the kind of, the way we aggregate perhaps grain producers or, kind of, vegetable producers. These producers are really all over. So Deshi Seeds took the effort to really kind of, use the, the network that Sahaja Samriddha has already established, and try to aggregate about 500 odd seed producers, and started sort of procuring their seed production and selling it through their outlets. It's if you look at it as a business model, it's a very simple model wherein they pre-order seeds, and they also prepay the production, because otherwise seed is something, if you the crops are not going to produce exact amount of seeds. Sometimes there will be a glut of seed production. Sometimes it will not happen. But then, in order to hedge for that kind of a risk on the part of the farmer, Deshi Seed really procures everything that the farmer produces. by paying a price beforehand. And then they kind of, they have a retail model where they largely use the online sort of a platform to sell it. And they also have a very, committed clientele within Karnataka and some of the states who really this is the broad business activity they do. And I don't know whether, Ajit, I can actually say about what exactly the innovations that I saw in this model.
Sure.
One is the structure of this company itself. It's a kind of, what I call a nested culture, nested structure, in the sense that Deshi Seeds is within a larger family of organic movement, or an organic centric sort of an organization called Sahaja Samriddha. And so there are a lot of interdependencies among the organic crop producers of Sahaja Samriddha and seed producers of Deshi Seed. There is a very strong sort of a exchange of relationship in terms of capacity building, technical support, even consumption, because this seed is also consumed by Sahaja Samriddhas, the farmers. So that structure itself is one innovation that I think which can perhaps which is very different from maybe an independent standalone FPO that you see. The second thing I would say is the very fact that they were able to operate in a space by entering into the open pollinated, open source seed production, which is not actually a commercial or market space. So the way in which they found a market niche and started serving that is something which is again, I think, is a major a newness, a novelty that you can see in seed at a much larger level. I would say that generally we say that FPOs can really mediate sustainable transition of agriculture by being helping farmers to transition from non-sustainable to sustainable agriculture. But that normative sort of a value itself being used as a USP of an FPO, I think it's quite an interesting thing to look at. It is not like they're using FPO to help people to move, but that movement itself became a kind of novelty that Deshi Seed has tried to cash in on. I think that is another significant uniqueness that I see in Deshi Seed.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. Just a line I would like to add. In the case study that's quite detailed in the book, there's an interesting replication and growth process that's happening as a result of the success and the early steps taken by this particular FPC by neighboring farmers, and moving from a technology seed intervention to an institutional structure, deriving lessons from this organization success. And I think that's definitely worth reading and studying. Thank you, Tara, for that. We have now on the panel Ms. Sivrani. Arunji mentioned about the expectation of an inclusive business organization where the FPC as a new form of institution is also supposed to include small, marginal, those who are really at the last mile, women farmers, tribal farmers. And also the expectation is that these organizations also led and managed by women farmers. So we have Ms. Sivarani, who is the CEO of a Salem-based women FPC, women-owned. We don't have many in the country, and therefore it would be interesting to know from her as to what are the experiences of running, leading a women-owned FPC. Are there any special challenges? Are there easy ways to do that? Or more than a normal FPC, you have to also encounter some special additional challenges, and how have you overcome those? So over to you. Feel free to have English and Tamil conversation, and Professor Shambhu and probably people, Partha, you would help. So feel free to flow in your language.
Thank you. First of all, I thank Access Development Services for gave me this opportunity. On behalf of my company and behalf of my institution, I thank you, sir. We are the one of the women-led APCs in Tamil Nadu. Veerapandi Kalanjiya Jeevitha Producer Company Limited started in 2017 February 9th with the help of NABARD before 10K APOs. At present, we are having 2,555 women farmers. 99% majority is marginal farmer. They are having less than 2.5 acres. And only 6% are large farmer, more than 5 acres. In our area, all are rain-fed. So majority people, they are always depend on rain. Major crop in our company is shareholder, groundnut and also pulses. 6 major crops in pulses. So we are doing the value chain business, oil making and also pulses procurement and packing and selling to the consumer. Very interesting story in our case, because morning session we have discussed about the self-help group movement in India. So our POPI called initial before CBBO concept, producer organization promoting institution called Salem Veerapandi Vattara Kalanjiyam is one of the self-help group federation. They are having nearly 500 self-help groups. 20 years back they have promoted, and at present they are having 8,000 members. With this help of 8,000 members who are all having the farming land, we have started the farming FIGs, Farmer Interest Group, with the help of NABARD last 6 years back. And we have converted into not all the self-help group, who are all in the self-help group farmers, we have converted into 200 FIGs. Then we have formed the companies. This is our story. So now I am very much thankful to NABARD and other institution, because we have started 20 years back only small way in the village. Now we are in the on platform with so-called bigger NGOs and other government institution. This is a small federation. Now we became the CBBO at present. Last year we got 25 companies approved by the SFAC, NAFED and NCDC. So these experience got from help of the self-help groups and our leaders. So at present we are fully working with the women farmers only. 90% we are having positive strength. Some small negative things also is there, challenges we can tell. Major thing is positive only. Whatever the problems or whatever the challenges we are facing in the company, immediately we call the meeting and we will immediately discuss and we solve the problems. And convergence with the line department, very conducive climate for last 4 to 5 years before 10K. But at present 10K we are working with all our bankable project only. But before 10K, lot of subsidy scheme came to the company, and at present we are having nearly 60 crores worth of transaction. And during the COVID period, we have worked very hard and we have achieved 19 crore business. And at present, we are working with farmers and also helping the other farmers companies for giving exposure and all. This is our experience so far, sir.
Maybe if you could, thank you for that. Would you sort of say a few more lines in terms of what kind of capacities need to be built in managing this business of large size, because it's not in lakhs but it's in crores. So as you sort of expanded and grew in the operations, what kind of efforts you and your team had to take in building capacities of the board but also of the staff? So maybe share a few more lines on that. Thank you.
We are having staff of nearly 12 persons. We are having committees, a procurement committee, processing committee and marketing committee. And we are facing we are giving a lot of capacity building to our board of directors, because board of directors having the capacity of handling the self-help group and handling the banks and all, but not in the language of producer company. Lot of compliances are there. Lot of words are new words to them. Before that, company, group, cluster, federation, and linkage, all the words they have known. But after the once company initiated, we selected the board of directors, mainly cluster level leaders or federation leaders who are having the capacity to handle. And continuously we are giving the capacity building to the board of director with the help of NABARD, local agriculture department, and also our auditors. So we have to give the importance. Working with the NGO is very easy compared to working with the companies, because we have to immediately do the work without any delay. Otherwise we have to go for giving penalty. So this making them to understand the company's compliances and also importance of the lot of licenses before going for any business. So somewhat difficult at the early stage, but continuous practice or continuous capacity building make them understand. Nowadays, board of director, they are telling the dates. This is ROC date, this is GST date, 11th and 28th we have to file the GST. So they will give the alert for us, for CEO or accountant, and we are having lot of register and all. So all the directors, they will equipped with a lot of trainings. And one more interesting things, two of the director, they are handling the processing unit in charge. They are getting salary from the company, so they know very well more than CEO and more than our accounts manager. So this is also 90% called a positive one only. Some of the things negative, because sometime they will, on behalf of company director, they will discuss. Sometime they will have the cap of staff. So we have to differentiate the cap of staff and director. Otherwise, there is no challenge compared to mixed group of company rather than leading the woman lead APOs.
Thank you. I think compliance is an important issue that she highlighted, and she also mentioned, because the registrar of companies doesn't differentiate between a 10,000 crore steel company owner and a 60 crore dal procuring, dal processing FPO, and compliances has to be above board. It has to be done, and as she rightly stated, if not done, there is a penalty, and your DIN and CIBIL score and all that might also get affected. So thank you for bringing that. But there are ways and means to sort of educate, empower. So as she said, linkage once was a little bit difficult word, but farmers and board understood what a bank linkage is, and therefore they would also understand the GST compliance dates and what needs to be followed, and then they will hire and pay for the accountants or the appropriate staff members. So thank you for that, Professor Shambhu, for the other two panel members.
Thanks, Ajit. So we'll move next to Parthasarathi. So Partha, you have taken up this case study. This is another case study of the CEO being a woman, of course, again from Tamil Nadu. So one of the things that we noticed out of these 15 case studies, and I'd like you to start with that, is the fact that many of these had some pre-existing social capital before they actually started registering the FPO. But today we are finding many of the new FPOs that are being formed in the scheme are being done in a certain kind of hurry. So two questions that we would like you to focus on. First is on the Kalani case study itself, because Kalani is one of the newer FPOs studied in this 12 individual FPOs. And it seems to be that some of the newer FPOs are able to reach, a turnover of, let's say, 1 crore much faster than the older ones. Is that a reflection of the fact that the ecosystem has improved? Very briefly, what are the innovations you found in the Kalani story? And then, because you are involved a lot in capacity building of these FPOs, so why is it that capacity building is important, and what kinds of challenges that you face both in FPOs from the south and FPOs in the north?
Thanks, Shambhu. So, the title of this Kayani case is Market First Approach of a Community-Based Institution. So, this FPO is promoted by Myrada, which is a pioneering organization in the SHG movement. And like Shambhu said, they had actually worked in that area. So, this area is Erode, it's a irrigated area where the main crops are paddy, banana, and other horticulture crops. And so Myrada had been working in this area since 2004, but this FPO itself was registered in 2016. So the formation of this FPO was preceded by at least, apart from the work that Myrada was already doing in that area, it was preceded by at least 3 years of pre-incubation phase where farmers were taken to exposure visit to successful FPOs for them to understand how the FPO works, what kind of businesses they can do, and so on. The other reason why Kayani has been selected as part of this book is that it is self-sustainable in the sense that they're able to handle their operations by themselves. They're doing about 1.5 2 crores of business, and the business that they are doing mainly is in millets, in export of bananas, as well as some businesses related to paddy. Now talking about the kind of mobilization, like I mentioned, there was a pre-incubation phase. But also after the FPO was registered, it was the priority for the FPO became how do we demonstrate the impact of the FPO to the shareholders. So within the first year, they had actually registered, before they could even start their business, they had registered farmers for crop insurance. And the first breakthrough for the FPO came when they were actually able to give crop insurance claims to the FPO members within the first year. They gave about 80 lakhs of claims to farmers. And that actually showed the members, it gave confidence to the members as well as to the FPO about the kind of impact that the FPO can have. So that is one important thing that they say that within the first 1 year of an FPO is important to demonstrate to the members about what the FPO can potentially do. But that also bought them some time for them to actually explore the business model. But having said this, the challenge for the FPO, Kayani FPO, is how do they continue to offer these services to the members? So though their business has grown, they have become self-sustainable in terms of revenues, but still the percentage of members that they're able to serve through the FPO, still they are kind of struggling. So I think that is a thing. And also the expectations of the members is something which I think is a challenge across FPOs. Because the members still see the FPC as a sort of a government representative, which is supposed to provide benefits, which an enterprise like the FPO cannot realistically provide. So there the issue of capacity building comes to the members in terms of them understanding what an FPO can do and what it cannot do, and what to realistically expect from an FPO. So that is, I think, one important capacity building element from the shareholder perspective. In terms of the directors and the governance, Kayani had the advantage, like the Shivarani ji was saying, that they had prior federations which were formed, and the directors were also drawn from these federations. And in that sense, the directors had good experience of working with community institutions. And what they brought to the table for the FPO was a high level of transparency. In fact, one thing which is written in the case study is the directors almost visit the FPO on a daily basis, and they have regular meetings, and the information is conveyed to the members. So there is a high level of transparency. But the challenge for them in terms of governance is how do they directors handle a complex institution like the FPC? In terms of handling the members' expectations, like what we talked about, how to handle those expectations. Secondly, in terms of business, how do we mobilize capital? How do we mobilize funds for the FPO 10 times what their current capital base is for them to do their business? So these kind of challenges, apart from the strength which they had in terms of the transparency element and all that, so that I think is required for continuous capacity building, apart from the compliances aspect that Sivrani ji highlighted. The third aspect of the business of the FPO, like I mentioned, the main business lines of this FPO, one is in millets, value-added products of millets. Second, in export of bananas, and also paddy-related businesses. So the way the FPO started off on doing its business, because paddy was the primary crop in the area, they started procuring and processing paddy. But the business failed because the main reason for that being the market is for rice and paddy is so well established, they're unable to compete. And also the established market practice of giving rice on credit to members was something which the FPC could not do. So that business failed. But they didn't give up. What they started was they moved on to grocery supply of grocery to the members, which started working well. Then they got into the business of banana because they had a 1-year contract to supply banana to a midday meal scheme. It was a 1-year contract to started procuring and supplying bananas. But after the contract was over, after 1 year, they tried, can we procure and sell it to the open market? Again, they found that the business failed because competing with the well-established market of bananas was not possible for the FPC to do. So then they decided, okay, rather than giving up on this business, they said, okay, let's focus now on export. They realized that getting into export market of bananas is going to take them at least 3-4 years. And that is quite challenging, but they're still working. So the main thing, I think, the learning and the capacity building angle for the FPO here is how do we work as like an entrepreneur, in terms of exploring and finding out the business model and learning by doing in terms of trying out new things, and then how do we actually arrive at the business model which not only can sustain the FPO but also can provide services to the members, is a continuous process of evolution for the FPO. So these are certain elements. Lastly, in terms of innovations, I think what I could like to highlight is they're using for the export of bananas, they're using blockchain, they're using various technologies, and also because this is export of organic bananas, so that is one innovation that we came across here. And high use of technology in their work in there is one innovative aspect that I can mention in this case.
So thanks, Partha. We'll come back to the capacity issue a bit later. So we would like to now move from individual FPOs and what we have referred to in some cases as type 2 kind of organizations, where you need a kind of a consortium of FPOs that can better deal with two very big players. One is the market, of course, and the second is the state as well. So many of the FPO federations were started in 2014, and one of which is the one led by Yogesh Vedi of the Madhya Bharat Consortium of FPOs in the state. I had the privilege, along with Abhishek, to document this case. And I still recall, after coming back from Bhopal, that we had a fairly long 6 to 7 hour discussion with Yogesh. And Yogesh, at the end of the 6th hour, seemed to have had the same energy that he had at the start. So, Yogesh, of course, you can also engage us for the next 6 hours, but we're not looking at that. तो हम ये चाहते हैं कि आप संक्षिप्त में आपका जो सफ़र है उसके बारे में बताइए, और ये सफ़र का अंग्रेजी अर्थ भी है जो SUFFER, उसका भी थोड़ा जिक्र करेंगे तो अच्छा रहेगा.
Thank you, sir, and also thanks for giving me liberty to speak in Hindi, so I can explain better in Hindi. जो सफ़र that I can explain, that सफ़र is really interesting to share with all. Yes, in fact, सफ़र काफ़ी लंबा है हमारा, और during working with ASA development organizations, FPOs का काम 2005-06 में we have started, when there was no, Madhya Pradesh was the first state where, these PCs were formed under any government project, 2005. So, and working with, with the FPCs from the beginning, as concept seeding to convincing the farmers, convincing the government machineries कि ये कोई पुअर का भी, किसानों का भी कोई कंपनी होता है क्या, कंपनी गरीबों की, क्या मजाक कर रहे हो? सो दैट वाज द मजाक इन दैट टाइम 2005, और लोग मजाक, कई ऐसे वर्कशॉप होते थे हम लोग, और तो इस था कि काफ़ी लंबा समय आगे निकलता गया, एंड that Madhya Pradesh case, it was came to the central and become the state policies 2006 14 13 14, and then अभी 10,000 FPOs का, तो काफ़ी लंबा सफ़र है। और इसमें श्योरली काम करते करते जब एक लंबा होता है ना, तो आपका एक बिलोंगिंगनेस जो होता है कि कुछ ये हमारा है, इसको हमें किसी हालत में गिरने नहीं देना है। तो ऐसे लोग हैं, और मैं इसमें खुशी हूँ कि हमारे साथ कई सारे लड़कों ने, हमारे लोगों ने कॉलेज से निकल के वो जर्नी शुरू की, कुछ यहाँ पे भी बैठे हुए हैं, और अभी सभी FPOs को लेकर के कि FPOs को आगे बढ़ाना है। FPO एक तो ये है कि FPO ज़रूरत है किसानों की, इसमें कोई भी नहीं है, बिकॉज कि जो फार्मर्स, जो स्मॉल फार्मर्स हैं, वो अकेले मतलब बोल रहे हैं एलोन दे आर नॉट एबल टू सर्वाइव। अगर उनके पास FPO इज़ ए सपोर्ट सिस्टम, प्योर एश्योरली इट इज़ ए बिजनेस इंस्टीट्यूशन है, बट ये एक फार्मर सपोर्ट सिस्टम है, और छोटे किसानों के लिए इसका होना बहुत ज़रूरी है। और स्टेट में हमें प्राउड है कि हम लोगों ने आज जब मैं गाँव में जाता हूँ तो एक ड्रीम क्रिएट होता है कि अगर वो मध्य भारत कर रहा है, अगर वो हमारा मंडला कर रहा है, तो मैं क्यों नहीं कर सकता हूँ। और मैं देख रहा हूँ पिछले 3-4 सालों में हम लोगों ने कई सारे अभी वुमेन FPOs भी बनाया है, और FPOs जो हैं उनको सपोर्ट करें। 206 FPOs जो है मध्य भारत के साथ जुड़ी हुई है, और पर्टिकुलरली जो FPOs जिनके पास कोई सपोर्ट सिस्टम नहीं, जहाँ पे CBBOs नहीं है, उस तरह के FPOs के लिए उनको रिवाइव करना, उनको वापस बिजनेस ट्रैक में ले जाना, उनकी जो रोज़मर्रा की जो समस्याएं हैं, चाहे वो ब्यूरोक्रेसी से, चाहे वो लाइसेंस की हो, चाहे वो जो बात अभी चल रहा था कि वो GSTs और इसके, क्योंकि अगर वो GST और जो लीगल कंप्लायंसेस है, चाहे वो टाटा की कंपनी हो, चाहे वो प्रोड्यूसर्स कंपनी, अभी वो दोनों के लिए एक है, और उसका जो पेनाल्टी है, और तो उससे कैसे उनको बचाना है। सो इस तरह के जो कंपनी सेक्रेटरी सी उनके नेगोशिएट करके कि यार 200 में हमारा GST फाइल करो, बाकी से आप 1000 रुपये लेते हो, हमारा ऑडिट उनसे 15 ले 5000, दैट वी डू एक्चुअली। और स्टेट में भी कई सारे पॉलिसी एडवोकेसी को लेकर के हमने काम कर रहे हैं। नोडल एजेंसीज स्टेट गवर्नमेंट को डिक्लेयर करवा भी किया है, मंडी बोर्ड से लेकर के गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स में मध्य भारत वर्किंग एज ए नोडल एजेंसी फॉर दी FPOs। पेरेंट सीड डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जो ब्रीडर सीड है, उसमें वी आर द नोडल एजेंसी फॉर द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट। सो ये इस तरह के कई सारे पॉलिसी एडवोकेसी के काम भी कर रहे हैं सेंट्रल लेवल पे इस तरह के, तो ये काम है। और अभी कई सारे वुमेन FPOs, कल हमारी कुछ और आएंगी वुमेन जो हमारे जो FPOs को लीड कर रही हैं। और जो अभी बात हो रही थी, और जो अभी एक्सपीरियंसेस ये आ रहा है कि हम देख रहे हैं कि जो वुमेन FPOs दे आर मोर डिसिप्लिन दैन दी मेन जो FPOs है, उनको मैनेज करना ज़्यादा डिफिकल्ट है। बट दी पर्टिकुलरली दी वुमेन हु हैज़ SSG बैकग्राउंड, जिन्होंने ग्रुप में काम करने का, जिनके पास एक्सपीरियंस है, दोज FPOs आर बिकम रियली वंडरफुल। और मेरे को तो अभी और ज़्यादा एनर्जी मिलती है। अभी हम लोग एक 31 अभी नए साल में नए तरीके से हमने मनाया, पूरे हमारे महिला BODs इकट्ठा हुआ एक जगह पे, और वो देख करके मैं खुद इंस्पायर हो रहा हूँ। मेरे को प्राउड हुआ कि यार आप बोर्ड में, तो मैं बोला अभी मध्य भारत में 10 में से 8 महिला BODs हैं, और वो सब अपने में लीडर है। मतलब वो आपको खड़े होकर जब स्टेज में आती है तो हम लग रहा है हमने तो कुछ नहीं किया, इन्होंने इतने कम समय में। सो है, और बिजनेस भी हो रहा है, लगभग 250 करोड़ का बिजनेस हम लोग अभी किए हैं। और अभी हमारा मेनली है कि जो FPO इनेबलिंग इकोसिस्टम्स जो स्टेट्स में हो, क्योंकि अभी आप देखेंगे कोऑपरेटिव्स के लेके अभी जो हमारे माननीय अमित शाह जी हैं, उनके आगे बहुत सारे एक फ्लडिंग हो रही है, बहुत सारी सपोर्ट सिस्टम्स की। पर FPOs में अभी वो वाला इशूज़ है, बिकॉज इफ़ यू आर डीलिंग, यू आर वर्किंग विद स्मॉल होल्डर्स, जिनके पास पूंजी नहीं, जिनको 1000 रुपये 500 रुपये इकट्ठा करना कठिन है। वहाँ पे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट की बात हो, चाहे वो किस तरह की प्रोसेसिंग की बात हो, वो खड़ा करना बहुत चैलेंजिंग है। उसमें हम लोग काफ़ी स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं कि हमारे FPOs के पास वेयर हाउस हो, उनके पास प्रोसेसिंग यूनिट हो, क्योंकि हर आदमी प्रोसेसिंग में तो आप जा नहीं रहे हो, आप तो ट्रेडिंग कर रहे हो, मार्जिन कम है, इसमें कम है। बट अभी हमारा लो रिस्क एंड हाई वॉल्यूम के बिजनेस में ग्रेजुअली हम किस तरह से प्रोसेस, उसमें हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं। और इस तरह का फेडरेशन इंटर FPOs अभी मध्य प्रदेश से हम लोगों ने छत्तीसगढ़ में अपना ऑपरेशन बढ़ाया, 19 ब्लॉक्स में हम लोग काम कर रहे हैं। सो इंटर FPOs बिजनेस कैसे बढ़ाया जाए, कारपोरेट के साथ नेगोशिएशन कैसे किए जाए, इस तरह के FPOs के हम लोग कमोडिटी बेस इस तरह के FPOs के एक इनफॉर्मल एक ग्रुप बना करके उस पर भी काम कर रहे हैं। सो बेसिकली है कि इकोनॉमी ऑफ स्केल का जो बेनिफिट है वो हमारे छोटे किसानों को कैसे मिल पाए। और अभी ये है कि सबसे बड़ी बात जो हमारे लिए कि फेडरेशन का इम्पोर्टेंस हर लेवल पे है, चाहे वो ब्लॉक लेवल पे, गांव लेवल पे हो, चाहे हमारे ऐसे, ये अपना लेवल बढ़ता जाएगा और उसका इम्पोर्टेंस, उनके रोल थोड़े बदल जाते हैं। और मध्य भारत उस रास्ते पे हमने थोड़ा आगे मतलब काम किया है, हमें है और बहुत सारा हमें काम करना है। और इस तरह के प्रोग्राम और इस तरह के जो कार्यक्रम हैं वो हमें और एनर्जी देते हैं। और हमारे बहुत सारे यहाँ पे कलीग बैठे हुए हैं, झारखंड से हमारे अमित हैं, अतुल हैं, आशीष भाई हमारे पीछे बैठे हुए हैं। हम लोगों ने इस काम को और मिल करके और बहुत पहले शुरू किया था। हमें मालूम नहीं था कि ये कहाँ पे हम जाएंगे, बट ये था कि हमें इसको आगे ले जाना है और हमारा मानना था कि ये जो हम कर रहे हैं ये ज़रूरी है और ये है। और आज इस तरह का देख रहे हैं कि एक मूवमेंट बना हुआ है नेशनल लेवल पर, और इसमें कई सारे छोटी कमियाँ हैं, कई कमजोरियाँ हैं, बट मेरे को मानना है कि एक समय के साथ ये और मैच्योर होंगे और हम लोग रियली जो स्मॉल फार्मर्स के लिए जिस तरह का हमारा ऑब्जेक्टिव है उनको सपोर्ट करना, उनकी लाइवलीहुड कैसे बढ़े। और एक इम्पॉर्टेंट काम और हमने इस बीच में शुरू किया जो इम्पोर्टेंट है कि हमारा मानना ये है कि एग्रीकल्चर का जो कॉस्ट ऑफ कल्टीवेशन है उसको कैसे कम किया जाए, क्योंकि इनकम बढ़ाना है तो एक तो आप मार्केट का जो उसका रिटर्न है वो बढ़े, साथ में कॉस्ट ऑफ कल्टीवेशन कम करें। दूसरा एक और इम्पॉर्टेंट, मार्केट में लोग जाते हैं, इफ़ यू आर गोइंग इंटरिंग विद मार्केट विद ट्रेडिशनल कमोडिटीज़ को लेके आप जाते हैं जिसमें पूरी व्यापारी जिसको डील कर रहे हैं, तो आपको कोई मार्केट में कोई बेनिफिट नहीं मिलता है। सो आपके प्रोडक्ट का कुछ यूएसपी हो, चाहे वो कोई ट्रेडिशनल वेराइटीज़ हो, चाहे वो जीरो केमिकल्स बेस हो, लो रेसिडुअल्स, जीरो पेस्टिसाइड्स, इस तरह के प्रोडक्ट हम डिफ्रेंशिएट। तो इसमें हम लोगों ने अभी 10,000 किसानों के साथ बुंदेलखंड में हमने इनिशिएट किया है कि हमारा जो प्रोडक्ट होगा वो जीरो केमिकल या जीरो पेस्टिसाइड्स का मटेरियल हो। ये अगर हम प्रोडक्ट लेके जाते हैं, अभी आशा काफ़ी इसमें ऑर्गेनिक को लेकर काम कर रहा है मध्य प्रदेश में, और हम लोगों का भी है कि हम डायरेक्ट ऑर्गेनिक में नहीं जा रहे, बट हमारा प्रोडक्ट यूनिक क्या है, लोग बोलते हैं आप में क्या है जो दूसरों में नहीं है, वो बहुत ज़रूरी है। क्योंकि अगर वो यूएसपी नहीं होगी तो ट्रेडिशनल मार्केट को डील करना या पीओस के लिए बहुत डिफिकल्ट है, क्योंकि इतने सारे प्लेयर हैं, क्योंकि हम लोग बहुत सारे लोग ऑलरेडी सैकड़ों सालों से इस बिजनेस को कर रहे हैं और हम लोग अभी आके तो उनके साथ कम्पीट करना है। सो हमारे साथ कलेक्टिव का स्ट्रेंथ है, साथ में हमारा प्रोडक्ट भी यूनिक होना चाहिए, उस पर हम काम कर रहे हैं। हमारा जो लक्ष्य है कि हम आगे आने वाले 5 साल में 1 लाख किसानों को इसमें ले जाएंगे। अभी हम लोग 10,000 किसानों के साथ काम कर रहे हैं, तो इस तरह को विजन को लेकर चल रहे हैं। थैंक यू सो मच। और हमें आशा है कि अब बहुत सारे लोग जो यहाँ पे बैठे हुए हैं, बाहर हैं, उनके सपोर्ट से मिल करके हम लोग अपने ऑब्जेक्टिव को पूरा कर पाएंगे। थैंक यू सो मच।
धन्यवाद योगेश जी। बस एक ही सवाल पूछना था कि ये जो 10,000 एफपीओ का स्कीम है उसमें एफपीओ फेडरेशंस का कोई जिक्र ही नहीं है। तो अगर आप चाहते हैं कि सरकार से कुछ मदद चाहिए जो फेडरेशंस के लिए वो खुद अपने हिसाब से चल रहे हैं, तो ये 1 या 2 चीज़ जो सरकार को करनी है वो क्या हो सकता है? आपका जो मध्य प्रदेश का जो अनुभव है उसको अगर कहीं गुजरात में लेना है या राजस्थान में, तो 1 या 2 मुद्दे बता सकते हैं संक्षिप्त में?
इसमें सर अगर आप पॉलिसी देखेंगे, पॉलिसी में तो क्लॉज है, इसमें देयर इज ए क्लॉज फॉर फेडरेशन, बट उसको इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए कोई सपोर्ट सिस्टम नहीं है। उन्होंने एफपीओस के लिए जो मैनेजमेंट ग्रांट का प्रोविज़न रखा है, तो अभी सेक्रेटरी हैं, जो जॉइंट सेक्रेटरी फैज अहमद किदवई सर, उन्होंने इसमें कुछ कॉल भी मंगाए थे कि उन्होंने विकास फ्रॉम मध्य प्रदेश हम लोगों को काम को उन्होंने नज़दीक से देखा हुआ है फेडरेशंस के। सो गवर्नमेंट में बात हो रही है, क्योंकि अभी गाइडलाइन में लिखा हुआ है कि फेडरेशन बनाने हैं, कमोडिटीज बेस्ड फेडरेशन, डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल फेडरेशन, बस उनके लिए सपोर्ट करनी है। तो वो उसमें बात हो रही है कि इसमें कुछ आपको बजटिंग करनी पड़ेगी। उसको करने के लिए जैसे मध्य भारत तो हम एक जेनेरिक इंस्टीट्यूशन है, इसको कई सारे हम काम कर रहे हैं, बट आगे आने वाले समय में आपको प्रोडक्ट स्पेसिफिक फेडरेशन चाहिए, जो कि अपने प्रोडक्ट को लेकर के, कोई क्रॉप को लेकर के बनने चाहिए डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे, और उसको लेकर के उसको ना और केवल मैनेजमेंट बट और सारे, जैसे बोले कि अगर आप स्मॉल फार्मर्स को डील कर रहे हैं तो उसमें आपको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट, बहुत सारी चीज़ों के लिए सपोर्ट चाहिए। वो ज़रूरत है स्टेट मतलब पर्टिकुलरली जो पॉलिसी में उसमें आना चाहिए। और स्टेट्स के लेवल पे भी अभी बात हो रही है, क्योंकि स्टेट्स के पास ज़्यादातर एफपीओस को लेकर कुछ भी नहीं है उनके पास। दे आर जस्ट सीइंग कि यार सेंट्रल से कुछ सपोर्ट मिलेगा, उनका ओनरशिप भी बहुत कम था। बट अब अच्छी बात यह है कि चूंकि सेंट्रल और जहाँ पे स्टेट गवर्नमेंट एक ही सरकार है, एक ही पार्टीज़ की है, तो थोड़ा बहुत है, बट स्टिल अभी स्टेट में बहुत कुछ काम करने की ज़रूरत है। बट जो आपका क्वेश्चन ये है कि इसमें बिल्कुल ये पॉलिसीज़ में अगर आप फेडरेशन के बारे में इसकी इंपॉर्टेंस को रियलाइज़ करें, तो इसको सपोर्ट करने के लिए पर्टिकुलरली इसमें प्रोविज़न होने चाहिए, चाहे वो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट की बात हो, चाहे वो फेडरेशन ग्रूम करने का। क्योंकि हमने ये देखा है पिछले समय में कई लोग हमारा कि आप तो एफपीओ फेडरेशन मार्केटिंग के लिए आए, तो व्हाई यू एंटर्ड इनटू द प्रमोटिंग, आप क्यों प्रमोटिंग इंस्टीट्यूशन बन गए? तो हमने ये देखा है, क्योंकि हमारा जो मैंडेट था, क्योंकि हम अपने रेवेन्यू जनरेट करने में इतना लग गए कि जो हमारा लक्ष्य सपोर्ट करने का था वो कहीं डाइल्यूट हो जाता है। क्योंकि अगर आप पूरी तरह से खुद को सस्टेन करने के लिए फेडरेशन को ही आप बिजनेस पे पूरी तरह लग जाएंगे, तो जो हमारा मेन ऑब्जेक्टिव था, जो हमारे एफपीओस को सपोर्ट करना है, वो उस पर हमारा कहीं ना कहीं, तो हमने फिर इसको कुछ रास्ता बीच का ऐसा चुना है। तो मेरा मानना है कि सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को इसके बारे में फेडरेशन को लेके एक कंक्रीट सपोर्ट जो है इसमें पॉलिसीज जो है बनानी चाहिए।
धन्यवाद योगेश जी. So we now move to our last panelist, Ajit Kanitkar, and of course then we'll open up for question answer session. So Ajit, you've written 2 different case studies in the book, one of an FPO that has been less successful of the 15 FPOs, and the other, of course, on the Maha FPC, which is the consortium in Maharashtra, started around the same time as Madhya Bharat. But this is an FPO that has grown really fast. A few weeks back in the class when I was talking about, everyone, management students know about B2B and B2C. So I was asking them about what is B2G, and they were kind of confused. And I think you talk about why B2G is important before you go to B2C, and you might want to explain the business model that they've faced. How did they grow so fast? And what kinds of next generation challenges that the FPO Federation has been facing?
Thank you, Shambhu. Maha Federation is about 11 years old, works all over Maharashtra, has about 625 FPCs as primary members, spread across all regions of the state. Largely, the organization has decided to focus around commodity clusters, which also happen to be there for geographical clusters. So, for example, they have number of FPCs working in onions, which happens to be Western Maharashtra belt. Good number of FPCs who work in dal, both chana and tur, which happens to be largely Marathwada region, and a large number of FPCs working in soybean and also tur dal, which happens to be the Vidarbha region. So this membership is drawn across the state, but focused around commodity clusters, as I said, around geographic clusters. What they have done interestingly is using interaction with the government largely through NAFED, SFSC and the government organizations in terms of being their procurement organizations at the ground, and capacity building of the primary FPCs by doing procurement on behalf of the government by undertaking ambitious targets as large as 150,000 tons, 200,000 tons in a procurement season of 2 months. And there I could derive from the interaction with, there is another Yogesh, and one of the unwritten rule is that if you have to be a successful federation, your CEO has to be Yogesh, either Yogesh Dwivedi or Yogesh Thorat. But joke apart, they have used 3 T's in their building the federation: trust, transaction and transparency. Farmers have been cheated, have interacted with large number of do-gooders like us sitting in this room, right from the government, NGOs, CSR, private sector, public sector, so on and so forth. What they need to know is that transaction is going to happen. That anyway was happening. But the transaction that will happen is in a transparent manner in terms of procurement, payment, weighment, warehouse receipt and so on. Money comes on time. And if these 2 T's are taken care of, trust will get built in. What Yogesh and his team in Maha FPC has done is that they have channelized the MSP model of procurement of dal through the FPCs, and in the process ensuring that these 3 T's, transactions happen at the doorstep, saving transaction cost obviously, weighment happens accurately through quality measurements, payment happens in time without any commission and corruption in between, and therefore trust gets built. In the process, the balance sheet of both the FPC in terms of commission and the lead agency or the federation, which is the Maha FPC, also gets built in because there is an income flow. Though it might be in terms of reimbursement of expenses for bori, for transport, for coolie charges, but also the commission in between. There is a surplus to the balance sheet, largely in terms of profit and loss account. That's number 1. As a result of that, their posture is to use MSP as a real life practical capacity building so that FPCs are not completely dependent on MSP model, given the uncertainty in the MSP that all of us know. It happens this year, it doesn't happen next year, imports happen and MSP is not announced. They want the FPCs at the primary level to diversify and trade, transact with the private sector independently, the ADMs of the world, the large sectors, Cargills of the world. Some of their FPCs are able to do that. Having said that, in last 11 years, they have done a transaction of almost 1,200 crores. Both their FPCs as well as the federation is in plus. But to put on record, not all FPCs are active. Of the 620, about 250 are active in terms of doing business, rest are sleeping. And there is an interesting innovation, almost as we speak, that's happening, is that they are trying to work out new models of governance. And Yogesh, their CEO, has mentioned, which has been also mentioned in the case, is that these are organizations with a cooperative soul, but the corporate management principle. But the moment the cooperative soul comes in, along with that comes the baggage of one person, one vote. So even if I'm passive during the year, I have always one vote. Of course, that's the principle on which it is based. But now what they are trying to do is that, and the company law and their article of association, of course, allows that is patronage-based additional voting rights. Patronage-based additional voting rights. All of us are members, we get one vote each. But let's say 10 of us have done extraordinary business, we have more voice, as is reflected in the additional votes based on the business done in last 3 years. And actually they are having an AGM 30th of this month where they are actually going to operationalize this. And if this happens, then in my opinion, MahaFPC provides an interesting model in terms of the learning happening on the business front, which is the corporate activity, and a new governance principle, which all of us have been trying to say, that members need to be active, they need to be, the management needs to be on patronage base, they need to provide services, they need to actively take services, and that should also reflect in the governance function. The last point in terms of what is the role of a federation, I think the federation is the voice of large number of small entities. An individual FPC based in, say, Mandsaur or Ratlam or Yavatmal does not have a voice to transact with NABARD or NAFEDs of the world. But a Yogesh sitting in Bhopal or sitting in Pune, who has a backing of at least 1,25,000 farmers, a procurement capacity of 300,000-400,000 tons, actually can do a market influencing mechanism. I grew up in IRMA. I taught in IRMA like Professor Shambhu Prasad is currently doing. And a number of years back, Dr. Kurian had an ambition of having a market intervention operation called Operation Dhara. Some of the old timers will recall their jingle, Dhara Dhara, Shuddha Dhara. And the mechanism there was that not that they will do a big Telia business, but the market oil federations will do a significant 2%, 5%, 10% business, and that actually will settle and set the prices. Imagine a situation that a 5 crore FPC, a 5 crore business entity doing a good business based on trust, transaction and transparency can actually set price trends and behavior in the local mandi in a geography of 20, 30, 40 kilometers. And if 200 such FPCs start doing that, 200 mandis get affected in terms of their price behavior and therefore subsequent procurement action. I think that's the ambition of MahaFPC. Long way to go. Maharashtra is a very charged socio-political environment, as is rest of the country. And therefore, to balance this cooperative soul and a corporate management style in a volatile situation where MSP is also a matter of policy constraints of the central government, they are a fine organization and we really hope that they do a good job. And inspired from that, many other state federations come in, strengthening not just the apex, but strengthening also the primary organizations. So that's the MahaFPC story in short.
Thank you very much, Ajit, and all our panelists. So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. So I'd like all of you to, any of you who have a question, to kindly be brief, raise your hands, and we will take the questions together. If you want anyone in particular to address, please let us know. Yeah, let's start from here. Any other hands?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you all panelists. This is Imanshu from FWWB. We have been working in FPO field from 2010. I hope I am allowed to ask 4 questions or only one, since this subject is very close to our heart. So
the other
it will be
questions, we can do it over tea.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first question is what is the 15 case studies, what is the current dependence on promoting agency? Whether they have existed, because or they are still supporting them? What is the current level of dependence on promoting agencies?
Okay, yes. Any other hands raised? Yeah. If we finish that, we'll come back to you, Himanshu.
Sir, I just want to know, out of the 28,000 or 29,000 FPOs promoted, whichever failed, how many, if we have any such assessment, how many FPOs have availed a good sort of financial support from local banks or financial institutions for the working capital they need, for the infrastructure support, whichever government or other sources they don't have, most of them don't have their own land, so capital investment support they have received, and a proper system to manage the business transactions and the trust transparency aspects. They have a robust system, and after providing all these supports from POPI or the government agency or donor support, after getting all these supports they have failed, or without availing these things they have failed.
Yeah, can you just introduce yourself?
I'm Jitendra Malik. I'm looking after Access Odisha programs in Nabrangpur.
Sure. We had another question. Yeah, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Amit Kumar. I am representing Jharkhand SRLM, that is JSLPS, and I lead the agribusiness vertical there. We have promoted 20 FPOs in a World Bank program, and all are women-led. And they have made a business of around 54 crores in last financial year. And my question is to B. Shivrani ji. You mentioned that you are using your directors as staffs. I don't know technically if it is possible or not, because I have talked to my CA. There are some issues on that. But how are you managing that? Because I am assuming that it will create some problem in the future. Okay, and it would be better if we can basically separate the two roles of director and his staff, because there would be aspirations to earn salary in the other directors as well. And eventually we have realized that it is very difficult for the FPOs to maintain professionals and retain actually the professionals for a long term. And it's a much better strategy that we basically nurture the local youths as staff in the organization. And we have also realized that there are BODs who are very active in our case. Okay, and they are helping the FPOs in doing good business. But due to this technical issue, we are not allowing them to take up the role as a staff. So I would like to know your perspective on that and your experiences on that. And if there are more cases where you have nurtured the youths to work in the FPO as staffs, if not professionals, as a paraprofessional. Thank you.
One last question. Anybody? Yeah, please. Yeah.
This is Pavitra from Vilatikulam Pudur Pulses Producer Company. I'm having the doubt in cash handling, how they are handling that much of cash. You said you are procuring from farmers and you are settling them money. Whether you are giving it through bank accounts or you are paying it as cash, because we are having that issues of cash handling through banks as well as cash. So we are having the turnover of 12 crores last year, but our transaction in bank was half. It was only half. So we are facing problems in audit. But our farmers were willing to get the money as cash, not through check or through accounts. So how you're handling those things? That was my doubt.
Okay. Yeah, one last question. Yes. Then we'll distribute the answers, and I request panelists to be brief on the responses.
I'm Eugenio Monteiro. I'm retired, but I'm writing cases. And I wrote many cases from India, Indian realities. One is Amul, Dr. Verghese Kurian, Aravind Eye Care System, etc., etc., a lot of them. And the last one I wrote is an institution founded by Mr. Mayank Gandhi, That is the global weakest trust. And to simplify and not to be long, what he is trying at the people do innovation, but a disruptive innovation. That means planting or putting a different kind of crops, so that practically every one of them are now earning 4 to 10 times more what they were earning before. If anyone wants to read the case, I can send.
Sure.
Since I have the email, and I can send to you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's only this.
Thank you very much. So just to start off the conversation, so about this promotional agency story, I think the case studies that we have taken have been partly deliberate to look at the role of civic action and civil society organizations leading some of these institutions. So the 10,000 FPO policy has moved slightly beyond trying to say that the CSOs do not know how to do business. So maybe some of the consulting firms and others are better off in bringing out these business changes. The results aren't quite completely out, but we have seen cases where after 3 years, project is over, consulting firm goes away, and the promoting institution is left with having to handle the FPU. So the 3-year, 5-year support, 5 years is a minimum. I think there's a recognition now that you can't really spread yourself too thin. A typical FPO can't handle, a promoting institution, whether you call it a CBBO or something, cannot do more than 25, 50 if they really have to be sustainable. And the chapter essentially talks about this. How do we move towards greater sustainability rather than just chasing growth? And I think we'll have to look at how long does it take. That's a different aspect to it. Amit, just before I give it to Sivarani, I think what we've realized is FPO is an omnibus term which includes different kinds of organizations. The ones supported by state rural livelihood missions have had more investment in making the FPO much more profitable. The ones which are earlier NABARD is 9 lakhs over 3 years, etc., is much smaller. So in one of our learnings has been that in terms of governance, unlike the earlier system where you have a clear separation between governance and management, what we've learned from these case studies, it is desirable for the board of directors to be involved in operation for the successful running of the FPO. So that's one of our small learnings. Whether it's applicable across the FPOs or not is a different matter. So I'd like to leave it to 3 of our panelists to make a brief intervention. One, Sivarani will respond to your question. And Yogesh will respond to this issue of infrastructure support and what can happen. And Partha, you might want to end with a little bit on what you see as the emerging issues on capacity development and all.
Thank you, sir. In our case, 2 of the directors, they are involving in the directly with the company processing unit. And we have discussed with the company secretary and our auditor. Our article, we are having that word to BOD, they have to work. But we are getting the 90% positive only small things. At the time, what we are discussing in the board meeting, whatever the plus or minus, it will come from the company. All the things goes to the board of director only. So if at all you will work hard, you will get the good name and profit and all. If something went wrong, then you have to be answerable. Not by the CEO, not by the accountant managers. So they will understood and they are working things. Second one is you are asked the professional or a para-professional or like some youth, local youth. We are having the experience of 25 companies we are having. Some places we are getting the BSc Agriculture graduate. Some of the places we are not getting. So local experienced person, we are giving the continuous training and they are working. But we have to wait and see the result of the things because just now only we have started for last 3 years. And second question, cash and check. In our case, we have taken the decision that we have to go for only digital mode or check system or transfer through the accounts, not to handle the cash. So we are using the UPI method. And this is, I think, this is attitude only matters because each and every farmer, they are having the accounts. So we have to tell the farmers within 12 hours we have to make. If at all having the current account, we are having an online mode, then easy for each and every minute we have to go for online. So this is based on each company, we have to take the decision. This is my experience.
Partha, briefly.
on her question or
Anything.
Okay.
Just, you have only 1 minute.
Yeah, right. So there are 2-3 in fact questions like जी जी तो एक आपका क्वेश्चन था पीछे जो आप बैठे हुए थे कि जो एपीओज को बेसिकली जो सपोर्ट सिस्टम है, ज़्यादातर एपीओज जो फेल हुई है उसमें अगर आप उसका एनालिसिस में जाएंगे विल फाइंड कि दोज एपीओज आर नॉट एबल टू गेट दैट आइदर 3 year or 5 year सपोर्ट properly. Most of the cases is happened कि that very sporadic manner or there was a long interval कि CEOs ने आपने रख लिया. So basically the concept इसको और simply define करेंगे कि born there was a child which is born, उसको जो vaccination होने थे there was no vaccination at all, उसको orphan छोड़ दिया गया यार, उसको nourishment में जो होना चाहिए था वो पूरी तरह से बोलते हैं कि malnutrition का शिकार हो गए, and that's why that appeal was failed actually. So there is a reason behind the failure of the appeals. Maybe add कि कुछ और लोग बोलेंगे it was artificially created, but your question was that कि वो उसमें infrastructure और इस तरह के appeals है, appeal belong to small holder, उनके पास जमीन को purchase करना is not issue, even they have 1 acre land. So these are the issues actually, और वो still we are struggling on that. That's why we are always looking towards government की कुछ उस तरह के, चाहे वो land allotment की बात हो चाहे इस तरह की बात हो. So we are working in the states. There are where some appeals who got that support from the government and they are working properly, even as a collectively they are working from last 10 year without any supports. So इस तरह का जो आपका issues था, एक पीछे जो मैम बोल रही थी उड़ीसा से, that was कि in fact your case we are also handling case, although for institution is a very difficult to like हम लोग मध्य भारत में भी, और हमारे एपीओस कभी 25 लाख पर डे एक छोटा सा स्टाफ बैंक से जाता है. देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम कि कोई उसको कभी कोई छीन लेगा, देयर वाज एक रिस्क होता है. बट स्टिल गवर्नमेंट में जिस तरह फार्मर के केस में है कि फार्मर इज कमिंग टू द मार्केट, आर एपीओज उनको परचेस करना है, उनको पैसा चाहिए. सो मध्य प्रदेश में गवर्नमेंट ने क्या किया कि 2 लाख तक का पेमेंट आपको उनको कैश में देना है. दे मेड ए रूल्स एक्चुअली. सो अभी हमको भी कोई मजबूरी है कि हमें कैश में पेमेंट करना है, तो फार्मर को कन्विंस करते हैं, बिकॉज जो फार्मर्स हमेशा लॉन्ग टर्म में काम कर रहे हैं उनको हम बोलते हैं कि आप अपने बैंक अकाउंट में लीजिए, बिकॉज इट इज आल्सो हेल्पिंग यू टू क्रिएट योर ओन स्कोर, सिविल, आपका एक अकाउंट में ट्रांजेक्शन दिखता है, उनको समझाते हैं. बट इट टेक्स टाइम. तो हम लोग 50% कैश करते हैं, 50 बैंक इज ए आइडियल वे कि बैंक में ट्रांजेक्शन होना चाहिए. बट फार्मर ऑलवेज प्रिफर टू गेट कैश. यहाँ तक कि व्यापारी लोकल मर्चेंट दे आर गेटिंग द बेनिफिट. हम लोग नहीं कर पाते थे तो हमारे पास किसान उनके पास चले जाते थे. नाउ वी हैव आल्सो स्टार्टेड डीलिंग विद द कैश. सो ये फार्मर्स के चॉइस है, वी आर वर्किंग विद द फार्मर्स, उनके जो प्रेफरेंसेज है और उनको कन्विंस करना पड़ेगा. सो इट विल टेक टाइम. थैंक यू.
So Partha, I think we'll skip.
Yeah, maybe we can discuss it over tea.
Yeah. So thank you, all the panelists. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. So we could carry on these conversations a bit further in the networking break. I think the next session is supposed to start soon. I'd like to just end with a small request to all of you. So there's a lot that can be talked about on FPOs. We've started a process for the last 2 years, partly as a result of this effort to write this book. We have 44 blogs on farmer producer collectives that we run on our Small Farm Incomes website. So all the interesting stories that you have on the ground, not all of it have been written by IRMA faculty or students. We would encourage you to get this knowledge from your experiences, and we can help you reach out in different languages. So I'd encourage all of you to look at the Small Farm Incomes website. And for those of you who have many questions which haven't been answered, the book is available. You can please purchase it. We just got the South Asian edition ready, and we'll be happy to carry these conversations forward. Thank you a lot, Access, for enabling this conversation, and over to the organizers.
Thank you for this very valuable and thought-provoking session. We take the opportunity of once again thanking our esteemed moderators and the panelists for this session. May I request you all to please kindly join us back in the audience. And as you descend from the stage, please do collect a small token as a token of our appreciation and thanks to all of you.